Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hare Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hare Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hare Radha Madhava Punjabi Gopi Jana Madhava Girivara Dhari Gopi Jana Bhalabha Girivara Dhari Jasodanandana Brajajanaranjana Jasodanandana Brajajanaranjana Yamunatiravana Yadi Yamunatiravana Yadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hadi Jai Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hadi Madhava Kunjabi Hadi Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dhari Jasodanandana Brajajanaranjana Jasodanandana Brajajanaranjana Jamunatiravana Jadi Jamunatiravana Jadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hadi Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parividavacharya Astatara Satasi Simaris Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Gaur Premanandi. Reading this morning from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 9, Text 39, 1939. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Devim Saraswatim Vyasam. Oops, I skipped a line. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamodirayat. Okay, so text 39. Vijayarata Kutumba Atato Tre Jatahaya Rashaminita Chiryek Shiniya Bhagavati Ratiraste Astume Mumurshur Yamiha Niriksha Hatagata Swarupam Vijayarata Kutumba Atatotre Dritahaya Rashamini Cha Chi Yekshaniya Nishekshaniye Bhagavati Ratir Astu Me Mamukshor Yamiha Niriksha Hatagata Swarupam. At the moment of death, let my ultimate attraction be to Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. I concentrate my mind upon the chariot driver of Arjuna, who stood with whip in his right hand and a bridle of rope in his left, who was very careful to give protection to Arjuna's chariot by all means. Those who saw him on the battlefield of Kurukshetra attained their original forms after death. Very merciful. Purport. A pure devotee of the Lord constantly sees the presence of the Lord within himself because of being transcendently rated by loving service. Such a pure devotee cannot forget the Lord for a moment. This is called trance. The mystic yogi tries to concentrate upon the supersoul by controlling the senses from all other engagements, and thus he ultimately attains samadhi. A devotee more easily attains samadhi or trance by constantly remembering the Lord's personal feature, along with his holy name, fame, pastimes, etc. Therefore, the concentration of the mystic yogi and that of the devotee are not on the same level. The concentration of the mystic is mechanical, whereas that of the pure devotee is natural, in pure love and spontaneous affection. Bhishma Dev was a pure devotee, and as a military marshal, he constantly remembered the battlefield feature of the Lord as Parthasarathi, the chariot driver of Arjuna. Therefore, the Lord's pastime as Parthasarathi is also eternal. The pastimes of the Lord beginning from his birth at the prison house of Kamsa up to the Moshala Leela at the end, all move one after another in all the universes, just as the clock hand moved from one point to another. And in such pastimes, his associates, like the Pandavas and Bhishma, are constant, eternal companions. So, Bhishma Dev never forgot the beautiful feature of the Lord as Parthasarathi, which even Arjuna could not see. Arjuna was behind the beautiful Parthasarathi, while Bhishma Dev was just in front of the Lord. As far as the military feature of the Lord is concerned, Bhishma Dev observed this with more relish than Arjuna. Phew. Paragraph. All the soldiers and persons on the battlefield of Kurukshetra attained their original spiritual form, like the Lord, after their death, because by the causeless mercy of the Lord, they were able to see him face to face on that occasion. The conditioned souls rotating in the evolutionary cycle from the aquatics up to the form of Brahma are all in the form of Maya, or the form obtained by one's own actions and awarded by material nature. The material forms of the conditioned souls are all foreign dresses, and when the conditioned soul becomes liberated from the clutches of the material energy, he attains his original form. The impersonalists want to attain the impersonal Brahman effulgence of the Lord, but that is not at all congenial to the living sparks, parts and parcels of the Lord. Therefore, the impersonalists again fall down and get material forms, which are all false to the spirit soul. A spiritual form like the Lord's, either two-handed or four-handed, is attained by the devotees of the Lord, either in the Vaikuntha or in the Goloka planet, according to the original nature of the soul. This form, which is 100% spiritual, is the Svarupa of the living being, and all the living beings who participated on the battlefield of Kurukshetra on both sides attained their Swarup, as confirmed by Bhishma Dev. So, Lord Sri Krishna was not only merciful to the Pandavas, he was also merciful to the other parties, because all of them attained the same result. Bhishma Dev wanted the same facility also, and that was his prayer to the Lord. Although his position as an associate of the Lord is assured in all circumstances, the conclusion is that whoever dies looking on the personality of Godhead within or without attains his Swarupa, which is the highest perfection of life. At the end of this month, this is the dark moon night, Diwali. And tonight, Lord Ramachandra is going to return to Ayodhya, and many other nice things which we hear about tonight. And at the end of this month comes the Purnima. And from the Ekadasi day until the end of the month is Bhishma Panchaka. So I'm already planning to have a nice 5-day absorption in Bhishma Dev, Bhishma Dev, Bhishma Dev, Bhishma Dev, and Bhishma Dev. And it's really easy to get absorbed in Bhishma Dev. His story is very attractive and, like the rest of Mahabharata, a little complicated. And I'm not going to go into all of that. We'll just stay with the purport. we've been discussing in these verses, the morning classes, these verses leading up to this one, the enigmatic situation with Bhishma Dev being so devoted to Krishna, taking the position of being opposite Krishna. And Bhishma Dev, who is a Mahajan and a pure devotee, taking the side with Duryodhana, who's like corruption personified. It's a puzzle. It has many nice things and many puzzling things amongst the nice things about Bhishma. And these concluding words for his prayers, because it's what corresponds with Bhishma Panchaka. Bhishma Panchaka means the 5 days where Bhishma was fasting completely. I mean, Arjun, Arjun wanted Bhishma Dev to have some water, but they're off on the battlefield, so he shot an arrow and some water fountain came into his mouth so he could have some water. Nothing. So this is part of those 5 days before he. Another amazing thing about Bhishma Dev is he could, and he did, leave his body at will. Now, most people don't choose when they leave their body. Bhishma Dev had that capacity. And he did so with his mind completely fixed and his eyes completely fixed and completely fixed. No question about his destination. Even in this verse, he who is Mahajan is saying the destination of everybody on the battlefield, both sides, because many, many, many on both sides were killed during this battle. And they all attained, specifically, it says Swarupa, and then within the purport, I'm sure it's embellishing something that's from Vaishnava commentators. Swarupa indicates one of the 5 kinds of liberation, attaining a form like the Lord's. This means Vaikuntha. One of the 5 types of liberation. So even the bad guys, because Krishna is very merciful. It's not that the other forms of the Lord are not merciful, just the superlative mercifulness of Krishna is unique. For example, Ravana and Kumbhakarna, they didn't achieve Vaikuntha. Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, they didn't achieve Vaikuntha. But Shishupal and Dandavakra, they achieved Vaikuntha. No, it's connected to many things, but it's the mercifulness of Krishna. So if they didn't attain Vaikuntha, where'd they go? That's a good question, isn't it? A little research, and they didn't attain, they became sinless because of being killed by the Supreme Lord, but their devotion to the Supreme Lord had not yet awakened. And therefore, they were in some place, a neutral place, it doesn't say specifically where, perhaps the what's the word, the place in between the spiritual and material realm, the something river. There we go. Thank you. Viraja River. Doesn't say. Another place indicates that you're a higher planet. place where pious people dwell, but not yet fully pure in their consciousness. So they became free from sinful reactions. But when Krishna, they're necessarily killed by Krishna. They're just on the battlefield where Krishna was, and seeing Krishna on the battlefield when they were killed, and they achieved their spiritual form. The verse says, and the purport says it several times. It's part of the merciful nature of Krishna. So Bhishma Dev knows the merciful nature of Krishna, and he's praying for his mercy, that my mind be fixed on him alone. Here's a detail that's related to the attainment of the Vaikuntha realm. Because I've been immersed in Madhurya Kandambini, I can't help but think through the lens of Madhurya Kandambini. Bhakti has the power to deliver Krishna. And other forms of yoga don't have that power. The power of bhakti has the power to deliver Krishna. In the purport, there's speaking of the yogis that meditate on Paramatma, and by mechanical means, they may be able to restrain their mind and senses and fix their mind and senses on the Supreme and attain a type of liberation. But it's not the type of liberation that one achieves through bhakti. The liberation that one achieves through bhakti is either one of two kinds. Either this attaining of Vaikuntha, or because those that are in this neutral state, they may achieve the Brahmajyoti, but they don't achieve Vaikuntha. And those that are become pure devotees following the regulative process of bhakti, they become pure devotees and reside in Vaikuntha. And those that follow the description that's in Madhurya Kandambini, it's very nice. Each of the leaves of the creeper of bhakti, as it grows and grows and grows, there is an upper and a lower surface of the leaf. And the upper surface is smooth and the lower surface is not smooth, a little rough, just like leaves. And so the upper surface symbolically represents or is the path of rag, and the lower surface is the path of vaidhi. And one who follows vaidhi bhakti may become a pure devotee. And the destination of those that simply follow vaidhi bhakti is the attain Vaikuntha. And those that follow the path of rag, which the followers of, so it depends on the seed of bhakti that one receives, and depends on how it's nurtured. Anyway, the path of rag entitles one to attain the sweet abode of Goloka. Now, Prabhupada doesn't make that kind of differentiation so much, but our acharyas make that differentiation pretty substantially. Certainly Rupa Goswami, and then the followers of Rupa Goswami. I'm just making the point that Bhishma Dev, in his prayers, Kunti in her prayers, they both know about Krishna in Vrindavan. They know about Goloka, where Krishna eternal resides, and his pastimes in Vrindavan. They both know them and the exalted nature of those pastimes. However, their mood and therefore their destination is more on the Vaikuntha side. And so they're pure devotees, unquestionably pure devotees, but their attainment is Vaikuntha. it has to do with their disposition and their regard for Krishna. Although, so I'll say it again, although they know that Krishna's childhood pastimes in Vrindavan were what those pastimes in Vrindavan were, they're certainly learned in those pastimes, but they're more on the side of regulative bhakti, and thus pure devotion on the regulative side of bhakti. So we should also be strict followers on the regulative side of bhakti, and at the same time follow the path that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave to his followers, which is appreciate the very special position of Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan, and amongst them the loving pastimes of the gopis. No, we don't become indulgent, but we recognize, certainly not prematurely, but we recognize the exalted nature of the devotees in Vrindavan, and amongst the devotees in Vrindavan, of course, Mother Jasoda, this is the month of Damodar, or Yasoda Damodar Leela, but also the gopis, the young gopis that have another kind of love besides parental love. Anyway, back to Grandfather Bhishma. He is vastly learned and completely fixed in the standards of Dharma. He lives by them, he teaches them, he exemplifies. So he's an ideal acharya or example to follow, especially for Kshatriyas, but he's capable of advising others besides Kshatriyas. He's a Mahajan. So we follow the path of Mahajans, not imitate, but follow the path of. And so I like this nice section, and I've been going through the prayers for a number of days in a number of different places, and it's a nice meditation on how Bhishma Dev is fixing his mind on the personality of Godhead, and the whole situation where he's on his deathbed. I mean, not just deathbed, but his body is pierced with so many arrows that he isn't even lying on the ground or a bed. He's lying on arrows. So how horrible it would be to see anyone in that condition, what to speak of the beloved grandfather. Yuck, it's awful. But he wasn't disturbed, and they knew he wasn't disturbed because his consciousness was in another place. And very, very nicely, although Krishna is present, we heard in earlier verses, Krishna very kindly induced Maharaj Yudhisthira to ask questions of Grandfather Bhishma, which is not so appropriate when somebody's in that condition. But instead of asking Krishna this and that and the other question, he's asking Grandfather Bhishma so that Grandfather Bhishma can give instructions, because that's his position. I mean, it's different but similar to Brihat Bhagavatamrita, where, according to Brihat Bhagavatamrita, after Shukadev Goswami finished speaking the entire Srimad Bhagavatam, the snake bird hadn't come yet. So Uttara, his mother, came running up to her son and said, I couldn't follow everything that Sukadeva Goswami said. Could you summarize it, please? And Maharaj Pariksit said, my dear mother, it's not the right time to ask such a question. But because you've asked such a question, let me summarize. And then he gives these 2 parts, Brihad Bhagavatamrita. Which is, in essence, then is a commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam in a very creative way, but it's a commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam in different ways, because there are many different ways that commentary can be. There's commentary on the standard of verse by verse. There's commentary by topic. There's commentary on just the essence described in a way that's fictitious, or whether it's fiction or not fiction. It's explaining the essence of what Srimad Bhagavatam has, rather than any of the other formats. So, Bhishma Deva is in essence accomplishing the same. He's covering many subject matters in his prayers, and his prayers are very powerful. And by meditation upon the words of such an exalted, pure devotee, one is purifying. One can become absorbed, or as explained in the purport, in a state of samadhi. Now, samadhi isn't just like child's talk. It's a very elevated stage, very, very elevated. So as a yogi may be engaged in dhyan, and the very mature stage attain the stage of samadhi, for a devotee to attain the stage of samadhi, that's rare. It's exceptional. So how can one attain what is being described in this purport, the samadhi of Bhishma Deva? It's the practice of devotional sadhana is meant to reach a goal. Is it possible to do sadhana and not reach the goal? Yes. Is it possible to do sadhana and reach the goal? Yes. So what makes the difference between sadhana that you don't and sadhana that you do reach the goal? That's a good question. And, so if we're doing sadhana, we should know what the goal is and strive to reach the goal. Where, so the goal is vyavasayatmika buddhi. In the language of Bhagavad Gita, the mind is exclusively engaged in thought of Krishna while doing anything. And how is it possible for the mind to be exclusively immersed in Krishna while doing anything? It's not by multitasking. It's by love. When there is say, the love of a mother for their child. I've noticed if the parents are sitting attending a class and the children are over there somewhere doing what children do when they get together, and one of the children starts to cry, the mother knows that which mother knows that's their child. The mother that's the mother of that child stands up. No one else stands up. Just the one that's the mother of that child stands up and goes and rescues their child because of the affection. The child wants mother, and the mother wants the child, and that connection. And so the closest thing to love in this world, Prabhupada has taught us, is the love of mother. And it's not that the mother has to practice some sadhana of remembering their child. It's the affection. It's just completely natural. That mother duck and her little ducklings, it's the same, they don't have to go to duck school, and they're attached. If one of the little ducklings is in trouble, mother duck is going to protect that little duckling. I've seen it. Maybe you've seen it. She arches her back and her tongue starts going out like that and making some sharp noise. She's protecting her little duckling. It's just, she doesn't go to duck school. It's because of that so the attachment to the temporary needs by sadhana to transition to attachment to the Supreme. So the stage of samadhi is beyond attachment. It's the stage of perfection. Sadhana is meant to take us there, not just to stay in the sadhana zone for the rest of our life. It's fine. Stay in the sadhana zone for the rest of your life. That's fine. But it's meant to take you to a place, the place where it's, as described in the purport, the stage of samadhi. Now, Prabhupada speaks about rather glibly, like, this leads to that. But it's more than you just do sadhana forever and you're going to reach the goal. It's not how it works. You do sadhana in the meditation upon what the goal is. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam chachat ante kalevaram. That's where you're going to go. Just commenting that sadhana is meant to lead us to a stronger meditation on what the purpose of the sadhana is. And Bhishma Deva is setting a nice example. Because the way that the set of prayers begins, I'm going to end abruptly. The way this set of prayers begins is he who was engaged in so many duties and so many subject matters and so many relationships and so many responsibilities withdrew all of that, executing of his devotional service in so many ways, and exclusively fixed his mind upon Krishna. And that's what we're getting. We're getting exclusive contemplation, absorption in Krishna. So he's in the samadhi stage, preparing himself to leave the body, because it's time, and then he, by his own will, he leaves the body. Glorious. Okay, let's see if there's some discussion. Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Thank you for the class. I've always been hearing these two terms, Vaikuntha and Goloka Vrindavan.
Mm.
So first of all, like, what is the difference between them? And is one is higher than the other? And other thing is, how different are they in like what is the sadhana, or there is any scriptural references to both of them?
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's to keep it simple. Brahma Samhita. You know the verse? Goloka namni nijadamni talecha tasya devi maheshu haridama suteshu. So haridam is below Golokadam. There is a spiritual hierarchy, and the sadhana for haridam is absorption in Hari, where the majesty, Aishvarya feature is predominant. And in Goloka, the Aishvarya feature is there, but eclipsed by Madhurya. feature of the Supreme. Same Supreme, but just the Madhurya feature is highlighted or eclipses the majesty. So sometimes in Krishna's Goloka pastimes, as above, so below, in Goloka pastimes, he will exhibit his majesty in so many ways. I mean, looking up on the above the kitchen here, there's Krishna lifting Govardhan Hill. That's Aishwarya. But while he's doing the Aishwarya, there's Madhurya. Underneath the hill, he's doing this and doing that. And so in Goloka, the Aishwarya feature is there, and sometimes he manifests it, and sometimes he covers. The Damodar Leela, or the Krishna, Mother Jasoda looking inside Krishna's mouth, etc., etc. Then he withdraws. She sees what she sees, and then it's withdrawn. Anyway. So that's the sadhana, that's the sadhya. Then the sadhana is, I mentioned already, there's Vaidhi sadhana bhakti and Raganuga sadhana bhakti. And the distinction between the two is, in the Vaidhi, that's it. You recognize, according to the injunctions of scriptures and under the guidance of the spiritual master, one applies oneself to the vidhis of sadhana bhakti. And in the Goloka destination, there's the vidhis plus the internal absorption in the mood of and the features of and the etc. of the ragatmika bhaktas. It's in Rupa Goswami's teachings. We'll hear about it in the Madhurya Kadambini class. You keep tilting, and he's going behind you this way, that way, and we're trying to have eye contact, and it's you're making it not easy. Krishna, Krishna. So there's the distinction of sadhana and sadhya. There, pure devotees reside in both places. The mood of that pure devotion is distinct. Okay?
Can I have a follow-up?
Sure.
So there are different levels where people can attain, like there are heavens and different levels, right?
Yes.
People can go, but people can fall, or the souls can fall down as well and take a bodily form. Is it possible that from Haridham, the soul can fall down as well?
There's no. I mean, here's Prabhupada's explanation. Free will is all with the soul. There's the possibility because there's free will of the soul. But souls don't fall from Vaikuntha. Souls don't fall. The exception is, you know what the exception is? Jai and Vijay. And that's the exception. It's by their desire, and the Lord permits to fulfill their desire. So there's the exception, and then there's the rule. Although it's spoken of as the jiva falls, and so this is a whole topic, like the fall of the jiva topic. It's like books written about it, and somehow or other is the classic yadrich chaya means somehow or other. There's no material cause. Is a principle of misuse of free will. You really want to go into that topic? The short answer is no. Krishna will protect, and the living entity doesn't have such a desire. So then, if the living entity doesn't have such a desire, how do we get here? Misuse of free will. Anyway, then it comes to this puzzling topic of what's the word? Nitya Sangsari, or the what's the adjective? The since time immemorial ignorance of the living entity. So you try. The issue is placing the fall of the jiva as an event in time, and it's not an event in time. For me, it's pretty simple, but for some persons, it's not so simple. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, you know who Bhaktivinoda Thakur is? Had in his 100 books, something like 90 of his 100 books covers the Dasa Mula Tattva, the 10 essential teachings of Lord Chaitanya. Dasa Mula Tattva, 10 essential teachings of Lord Chaitanya. And one of those 10 is some living entities are in the spiritual world, some living entities are in the material world. One of the 10 essentials. So then, in his way of addressing that topic, he touches on the fall of the jiva, why some there and why some here. Why? And then he says, it's in his language, in English, it's not just a translation. I'll say it slowly and twice. Do not ask the misleading question. You're doing it again. Let's tilt that way. There we go. Do not ask the misleading question, when were the living entities created? The question is misleading because they're not created. They are from their Tatastha Shakti of the Supreme Lord. Okay, if they're Tatastha Shakti, then when did it start? As if it's an event in time. It's not an event in time. Living entities are Tatastha Shakti. Don't ask the misleading question, when were the living entities created? Then parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord. You use material examples that are sparks onto a fire. Okay, there's the fire. When did the spark come out of the fire? And then land on the land or water or leaves. So as if it's an event in time. The fall of the jiva is similarly not an event in time. They're not created. Nitya Sangsari. So my language is, it's not a chronological event, it's an ontological event. That's a clever way of whitewashing the question. But it's not an event in time. That's Bhaktivinoda Thakur's answer. So it's an event. The problem the problem getting it is the tendency to place it as an event in time that is not an event in time. So the fall of the jiva topic is placing it as an event in time. Look, it was so nice in the spiritual world, and Krishna protects his devotees. So how do the living entities fall? As if it's an event in time. It's not an event in time. Is that it?
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Next. Hare Krishna. Go ahead.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Earlier you mentioned in the class Jaya Vijaya, like Ravana and Kumbhakarna did not attain, or the other example did not attain, but Shishupala and Dantavaktara attained Goloka. So, but But
They didn't attain Goloka, they attained Vaikuntha.
Vaikuntha.
They returned to their position as gatekeepers.
Follow question.
Yeah, the other two times they came as three births, they didn't attain Vaikuntha. They didn't attain liberation. Got it?
Got it, Maharaj.
Okay. Next. Is that it? Fantastic. You have something.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for the wonderful class. So, as the sadhakas, should we be aspiring for Raganuga or Vaidhi Bhakti?
I couldn't follow what you're saying.
So should we follow Raganuga Bhakti path or Vaidhi Bhakti path?
We follow Raganuga Bhakti.
Okay.
You'll hear about it in Madhurya Kandambani, but the very practice that we have, it's built in. We may be less conscious, we may be medium conscious, we may be more conscious, but it's built into our practice. From the get-go, it has to do with the seed that's given to us, the seed of bhakti. For example, from the get-go, we hear about Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan, and we may be more absorbed or medium absorbed or less absorbed, but it's the Madhurya feature of Krishna. We're hearing about it from the source that's a Madhurya source. So it's in the beginning stages of raga, but we'll hear in details about it. But that's the principle. We follow the vidhis, yes, and there's emphasis on the sweetness of Krishna's pastimes from the very beginning. Okay?
Okay. Thank you, Maharaj.
Radha Krishna, deity worship.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So as per the sloka,
those who are followers of the vidhis is Satyabhama Krishna, Rukmini Krishna, not Radha Krishna. Go ahead.
in the battlefield, Bhishma is looking at Krishna. So he attained Vaikuntha, or he attained
Vaikuntha. It's his mood. And so for following, he attains.
As a warrior, he's seeing Krishna.
What?
As a warrior, he's
No, it's
seeing
not
Krishna.
because he's a warrior. It's his mood.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to ask
Here's the microphone.
Maharaj, of all the incarnations of Vishnu,
Yeah.
I would say that I am most attached to the Krishna's form for many reasons. Not form, his philosophy, his everything, his,
Okay. I got it.
his life. But what I haven't understood is this, that why Rama and Krishna are so different in their emphasis on virtue.
It has everything to do with raga. And because of raga, it has everything to do with destination. Let me ask you, the eternal abode of Lord Ramachandra, from which he descended and performed his pastimes, where is that eternal abode? Answer, Haridham. It's at the topmost in Haridham. There's hierarchy even in Haridham. So Ayodhya Dham is the topmost of Haridham. But it's Haridham. So he's teaching, and his behavior, and Maryoda Purushottama, he's teaching virtue and nothing but virtue. That's it. That's Ram. And Krishna is teaching something else. He's teaching virtue and sweetness. And in the exhibition of his sweetness, he does things that virtuous Ram wouldn't do. Virtuous Ram married one wife. Look at Krishna. It's not that Krishna can't control his senses. Krishna is exhibiting another feature.
Can I follow up
Yeah.
one more? And you raised that, you led to that. Although Rama's wife, Sita, is his ordained wife, and Radha is only a childhood lover of Krishna. But in the Indian ethos, what we have done is, even Krishna's name is not taken without Radha. Radha Krishna.
Well, some people.
Radha Krishna.
Let's go to Udupi and Madhvacharya. Where's Radha? There's no Radha,
There's no Radha, right?
etc. And there's many worshippers
it is
of
an
Krishna.
emblem of love.
But yeah, he in Udupi Krishna, he has his little cowherd boy. He has his cowherd stick, and he has his flute. You know, it's there's a sweetness, but without Radha, and he did so you can't just put everything in a neat little box. It's not quite like that. We, as followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we worship Radha Krishna. And in some places within ISKCON, it's Satyabhama Krishna. And for Sri Vaishnavas, it's never Radha Krishna. Never. Never, 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 never. You know, that was one of the issues that the Ramanadis had with the worship of Radha Govinda in Jaipur. You know the history. They took exception. What's this? Who ever heard of Radha being worshipped with Krishna? Where is it in scripture? So these Gaudiyas, they're not eligible to worship Govinda. We should worship Govinda. We'll do it the right way. That was the challenge to the king.
Perhaps Muslim influence in that.
Well, whatever it was, perhaps they were strict followers according to their teaching, and there's no Radha by the side of Krishna. For the Ramanadis, the worshippers of Ramachandra. It's a long history, but rather than going into the long history because of time, there are some persons that object. Not only they don't, but they object. So what happened historically was Baladev Vidyabhusan was challenged, and he accomplished a commentary on Vedanta Sutra or Brahma Sutra. One of the sutras, he gave scriptural reference from the Shruti mantras that Radha is to be worshipped.
She is also the most, not only the emblem of love as the icon, but she's also the most tragic character.
Well, yes and no, because love, according to Gaudiya conception, love and separation is even stronger than love and meeting. So let's pass the microphone on to this young man and see what he wants to say.
All right.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
This is our last question, by the way.
Okay. In most of the other questions, you mentioned this kind of interplay between Vidhi Marga and Raga Marga.
Yeah.
And in Srila Prabhupada's teachings specifically, there's a history of within ISKCON expressing a lot of caution towards going towards Raga Marga unnecessarily.
Yes. Why? That's your question?
Not quite. So when he speaks of Radha Krishna worship, he said in a letter that we're actually worshiping Lakshmi Narayan instead of Radha Krishna. And then you mentioned, I think, Kunti Devi and Bhishma Dev. they're pure devotees. They're understanding from Vidhimarg. They understand Vrindavan Lila. When Prabhupada speaks on Damodar Lila, I think there's one verse from Kunti Devi's prayers where she said that she describes how Krishna is running from Mother Yashoda in fear of her. And she says, quite frankly, I cannot understand this. It's bewildering to me.
That's Kunti.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if this is, as a Gaudiya Vaishnavas, as you mentioned, even though we're following Vidhimarg in practice, we're still aiming towards Raganuga Bhakti.
Yes.
If even pure devotees like Bhishma Dev and Kunti Devi, despite understanding Vrindavan Lila, they can be bewildered by it. If even Brahma can be bewildered by Vrindavan pastimes,
No problem.
how do what chance is there for us?
Oh, they just become followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which means followers of Rupa Goswami and the six Goswamis and those that are followers of the six Goswamis and that are disciplic line, and we become followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his disciplic line, and that's our hope. It's descending mercy. It's not our qualification. And it, is descending mercy capable of superseding our shortcomings? Yes. Do we have to be eager for that mercy? Yes. Is it capable of overcoming our shortcomings? Yes. So we have to be, mercy seekers. Or in the language of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in Madhurya Kandambari, be like seeking the honey, the sweetness. That's madhu is honey. So madhurya is seeking the sweetness of the love in the line of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which is Rupa Goswami, which is madhurya, which is the sweetness. Madhurya can mean conjugal, but it can also just mean Braja Prem. That's the line. That's our line. So what's the hope for us? Mercy. And, continue to be respectful to others with other traditions and other ideas and, honor them, respectful and honor them. At the same time, feel progressively more and more affinity to an absorption in that kind of love that Lord Chaitanya came to give. Love of Krishna in Vrindavan, the sweetness, and more and more and more and more and more and more and more, not with disrespect, but with absorption in. I mean, that's how detachment happens. Detachment is the product of attachment. And the more one becomes attached, according to the mood of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the gift that he came to give, then there's detachment, not disrespect, but detachment from other moods, including the moods of whatever you might want to call it. Be fully respectful for the love that those who are genuine, not just in name, but genuine followers of Christ. Like, it's the same Mother Teresa, just as, for example, or Saint this one, that one, the other one. And their teachings are fantastic, worthy of respect, and their lives exemplify. And it's not a Braja Prem mood, but we don't disrespect it. It's fantastic. And at the same time, have this very strong affinity for Braja Prem. And the love of the residents of Vrindavan is super excellent. So it's not demeaning the love of the followers of Lord Ramachandra. I mean, today's Diwali. And we're honoring Diwali. We're honoring Lord Chaitanya, Lord Ramachandra returning to Ayodhya and becoming, rescuing Bharat and the whole thing. And becoming crowned as the king and everything. And everything. You're going to end? Srila Prabhupada ki jai. What? What? You're going to give a